Hi guys, I'm Leah and I'm your local plant expert here at Jacob's Trading. If you haven't heard of Jacob's Trading, check the description below. We got some information about our online store on our website. It's pretty cool, go check it out. Today we're going to be talking about some basic care tips for beginners and 7 mistakes to avoid. Number 1, soil type matters. Different plants have different soil requirements, and these different types of soils have been engineered specifically for different kinds of plants, and they're perfect so that they're going to help them grow and thrive. If you mix up these different soils into different plants that they aren't supposed to be in, it can cause your plant to die. Some plants like to remain more moist. So for example, this spider plant here, it is in just a regular potting soil. So a regular potting soil is going to hold that moisture in, which is what they prefer. Whereas something like a cactus or a succulent, for example, like this guy here, this guy's in a specific succulent/cactus potting soil. So it's going to allow for a lot more drainage. So they're not going to sit into that moisture, which is good because if they sit in moisture, it's going to cause their roots to rot and die. Plants like orchids also need different soil requirements. So these guys are epiphytes, meaning that they need a lot more airy environment. So for this guy, he has bark chunks, sphagnum moss, and just a lot chunkier medium so that it helps it thrive. So make sure when you bring home a new plant that you do your research on what kind of soil that they require. This is going to help them really thrive. Number 2, drainage. While you can get away with not having holes at the bottom of your pot, I would highly recommend having some kind of drainage hole at the bottom, especially for new plant parents. Overwatering is the number 1 killer for plants, so not having these holes and allowing for that excess drainage can cause water just to sit up in those roots and can cause your plant to die. So you can either have holes at the bottom, or even if you have something like this guy here, where he's in a catch pot with holes at the bottom, but still in a nice pretty decorative pot, that's perfect for you. If your pot doesn't have any holes and you accidentally overwater it, it can lead to problems like root rot, which will eventually kill your plant. Some kind of drainage method is best, and having this extra holes will allow your roots to get the oxygen that they need and will help prevent the risk of overwatering and your plant sitting in water. Number 3, don't repot right away. Plants need some time to acclimate to their new environment once you bring them home, because your home environment is a lot different than the greenhouse that you're picking them up from. Factors like temperature, humidity, light is all going to affect your plant and how they grow. So they need time to acclimate to this change. So when you bring a new plant home, you're going to want to let it acclimate for about 2 weeks before you change it into a new pot. Another thing you're going to want to really look out for is whether or not it actually needs to be repotted yet. So to do this, all you're going to do is look at the underneath of the pot. If you see roots coming out, kind of like this one here, then it probably could be ready to go into a new pot after that 2-week period. But if it's not quite ready to go yet, or you don't want to wait those 2 weeks to put it into a nice decorative pot, a great thing that you can do is just put this nursery pot here into a decorative pot that's a little bit larger. So for example, all you got to do is just do that, and it still looks really nice and pretty. Number 4, quarantining your plant after purchasing it. You always should check before you purchase your plant whether it has any pests or any disease on it. So you're going to want to check underneath all the leaves, give it a good look over, and make sure that your plant is fully healthy before you buy it. Once you do buy it and bring it home though, you're still going to want to be extra cautious. So you're going to want to quarantine your plant to keep any kind of problematic pests away from your other plants. It's best to put your new plant into a bright location away from the rest of your plants for about 2 weeks to a month. During this time period, you're going to want to check on your plant periodically to make sure no diseases or pests pop up. You can also use things like neem oil spray or insecticidal soaps to help ensure that nothing happens to your plant. Once you're completely sure that it is good to go and there's no problems with it, you then can introduce it to the rest of your collection. Number 5, always check your soil before watering your plant. The number 1 cause of death in plants is root rot due to overwatering. So to prevent this, you're going to want to make sure that you get into the habit of checking your soil before you give it any water, all the time. So to do this, you can either invest in a moisture meter, which will help you with that, or you can just do what I do, and I just make sure I stick my finger all the way down into that soil before you give it any water. If it's dry, give it some water. If your finger comes out still wet, don't water it yet. Number 6, don't immediately put your plants into direct sunlight. Most plants in general don't like direct sunlight. But when you bring them home from a greenhouse, they are used to different lighting conditions. Typically, greenhouses have shaded light, so they're not directly in light. So when you bring them home, you're going to want to let them acclimate to your light condition before moving them directly onto your windowsill. To do this, you're going to want to keep your plant further away from the windowsill and slowly move it closer to the windowsill over time. This is going to give it a gradual change in light. If you take your plant and put it into direct sunlight right away, it's going to cause the leaves to burn, which is going to harm your plant. Number 7, do your research before bringing home a plant and make sure you know its care. My last tip is to do your research on your plant that you're going to bring home. Make sure that you're able to provide the proper light, humidity, and water requirements that it needs. This is going to be the best way to keep your plant alive and keep it healthy. So that's it for me, guys. I hope this video helped clear up some of these common mistakes a lot of beginner plant parents do and also give you some other care tips. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're putting out new videos every week. Stay in bloom, don't kill your plants.